So thank you all for coming to our show. My name is Justyn Zolli, and I'm a painter and an artist, visual artist here in San Francisco. And I'm just going to do a little artist talk and introduce you to my process and how I arrive at my imagery. This is my work here behind me and to the left. And as you can see, I'm very inspired by nature, by the dynamics of nature. I do a lot of traveling. I travel all over North America, and I go into wilderness preserves and national parks all over the country. I love being outdoors. I spend as much of my time as I can in wild places. It brings me a deep sense of fulfillment and peace and nourishment artistically. When I was a younger artist, I spent a lot of time in big cities like New York, and I went all over Europe, to Rome, to London, to Paris. But it wasn't until I really came to the West here in San Francisco that I really delved into the great classrooms of nature that we have all around us in the state. There are rainforests and redwood forests and cliffs and canyons and deserts. It's for an artist, it's just a great wealth of inspiration to be had. So here's a few of the places just to give you a sense of where I go. The last one was in Yosemite. This is in Oregon. This is on the coast, up in Oregon as well. And this is going to basically be the title of my talk tonight. It's basically the role of experiential nature study, which means not quite just understanding nature in its theory, but immersion, through actually going out and smelling and tasting and being out into those landscapes. So I take a lot of photographs in preparation for my work. And what I'm interested in photography is not necessarily the great scenic landscape or the thing that is like a snapshot. Or what I'm really interested in with photography is abstraction and the dynamics that are at play in nature. And I see those same dynamics play out across lots of different ecosystems. So for example, this pair of photographs, you have on the top is light spilling through a storm cloud onto some hills. And the photograph on the bottom is the upper and lower Yosemite Falls in Yosemite National Park. And there's this kind of similar form. This is water, light passing through mist coming off of a mountain, and this is light passing through mist and water that's up in the air. But the composition is kind of similar, and the sense of light and how light interacts with vapor is similar. Here's a pair of photographs that on its surface might not seem to be comparable, but what you have is one part of the composition for the bottom 2/3 taking up the space, and then you have something else at the top 1/3. In this case, you have a lot of verticals at the top, and on this one you have a lot of verticals at the top. You have horizontal going across the middle, and then you have a large form in the lower 1/3. This is Mono Lake, California, and this is taken in Yosemite, in the high country. Here, this pair of photographs is about waves. Here is very obvious kind of waves, the waves crashing upon rocks as you look back into the distance. But here is several trees that have fallen down in a forest, and when framed, they also form waves. Waves of branches undulate across the surface, across the composition from left to right. Now, this is a pairing that's about scale, because what's really important in art is not size. It's always scale. It's always human scale. It's how the sometimes very small work can be very monumental in feeling, and sometimes very monumental work can seem rather intimate. So the image on the right is Horsetail Falls in Yosemite Valley, taken there's 1 week out of the entire year where the sunset skirts across the valley, and the last rays of the sunset illuminate one waterfall way on the other side of the valley and turn it bright orange just for about half an hour, and then it's gone. You can kind of see the trees at the top and the snow, and that'll kind of give you the sense of scale. But you have this very elegant, long, vertical form that sort of gently and gracefully cascades down the center of the composition. And on the left, excuse me, on the left, you have this is a sap run from an alder tree. And you have the same sort of very graceful vertical. So I find the same composition, the same kind of arrangement of form in both the great space and the very intimate space. Now, this pairing is about waves. I like waves. But waves don't necessarily have to be with water. They can be with sand. They can be in the sky. This is waves that are in the clouds. You know, a pilot told me that this is, he read that, he can read a sky, and he read that, he said this is a storm coming in. I guess when the high pressure meets the low pressure, you have this particular form of clouds. So here you have this waves that sort of go back and forth, arch, going upwards. This photograph is taken on Ocean Beach here in San Francisco, and there's a part of Ocean Beach where the sand is black. It's black with gold flecks. And sometimes the white sand or the gold flecked sand blows across and into the divots of the black sand. And I heighten that a little bit to show that here you have these waves and rivulets that cascade down. So whether you're cascading up or cascading down, you can still find waves in the sky or in the sand. This pairing is about understanding verticals again. This image on the right is some sequoia trees on Mount Tamalpais. And they grow very straight, and for many of them, their branches are up towards the top. So you get a very long, thin trunk. And when the light is correct, behind it in the foliage, you have this very beautiful, stark contrast of verticals against a light background. And on the left is rock. You might not think that that's rock, but it's actually large basalt columns. They're volcanic rock, millions and millions of years old. And it's at a national monument called Devil's Postpile in the Mammoth Lakes region. And it's a part of a volcano that came up millions of years ago, cooled, and when it cooled, the molecules of this particular rock lined up into perfect hexagons. So if you were to look at the very top of this, you'd see like a honeycomb kind of pattern where all the rocks have kind of fit together, where they've cracked along these very precise geometries. But then on the side, they break apart and you have these beautiful columns of rock. And they're covered in bright green lichen. So here you have very obvious verticals, and here you have not so obvious verticals, but it doesn't matter everybody expects to see verticals in a forest, but you might not expect to see this level of verticality in a mountain. Again, this is another illustration of the sense of scale. And this is about finding patterns within scale, not necessarily just the form itself, but finding a composition within two different scales that is kind of the same. So for example, this is a rock that is a sandstone formation in Point Lobos, down near Carmel. There's beautiful sandstone formations. And it kind of has this beautiful cross, where one kind of, the cross of this shape sort of slopes down to the left. And these are giant granite domes in Yosemite. And if you look on this dome, you kind of see the same sort of idea. You have these large, long lines of rock go through. And so, to my eye, those seem very comparable. Because, again, it's not about size, it's about scale, and it's about the unity of form. This pairing is about light in a field, and how light interacts with what is kind of like a homogeneous field. The image on the left is the last light of a sunset reflecting off of a pond. And the image on the right is clouds, a blanket of clouds seen from below, and then the shadows of higher clouds, also kind of during sunset, casting shadows on the bottom. And that's a kind of overall, the sense of having a field that encompasses the whole visual space. And then lastly, of course, there's always geometries that happen in nature. There's a Romanesco broccoli, which I think is very beautiful, and if you study it, it's very fractal in the way that it is organized. And this is a surf-eroded tree stump, where all the soft part of all the pulp of the tree has been, or the stump has been eroded by salt water, leaving only the sort of hardened parts. But it creates this beautiful burst and pattern, which is geometric. So in my process, I go to all these places and I see these things and I document them. And to me, that's kind of the way that it's like sketching in a way. And I look at my practice in three ways. There is an impression, improvisation, and composition. These are the three ways that Kandinsky, also a great abstract painter from the 20th century, also thought about his work. So the photographs for me are more like impressions. I see something in the outside world, it catches my eye, I'm studying it intensely, it's an impression of the world. It impresses itself upon my mind. From there, I try to strip out the specificity of those things. So it's no longer about that mountain in the Sierras, or that particular lake, or that particular sky. It's more about sky, capital letters, mountain, capital letters. It's more about trying to tap into the feeling of what those things are and the dynamic that's at play, because as you can see from those pairings of photographs, the dynamics are similar across many different kinds of ecosystems. Nature only has a few laws, and she creates all that multiplicity out of just combinations of those few laws. So then the process for me is turning it into a language. And the way I do that is I begin with drawings. And the drawings are improvisational, meaning I'm not drawing from what I see. I'm conditioning my mind by immersion, and then using that condition to create and improvise on the page. And you can get almost an immediate kind of mark making, something that's very straightforward. When you just strip away and turn it into black and white line. You don't have to deal with color, you don't have to deal with texture, you don't have to deal with any of those things that are very complicated. You're just turning the language into a grammar. Waves. Or it could be dunes. Or it could be clouds. It's all about the drawing, the line drawing. Mountains piling up. Or it could be boulders. Or it could be the ocean behind the boulders. Or it could be clouds rising up through the mountains. Or it could be a moon reflected in the waves or reflected in the sky.
Oh, man.
It could be a beautiful landscape or the wind. The feeling of the wind as it whips across your hair and across your face. Beautiful spiraling of water as it goes through, or it could be the spiraling of a cloud. I love things coming together and breaking apart. Just kind of try and get that. With the staggering of the line.
Yeah.
Or how things move and sweep across a space and then change. And sort of circles around and then drops. And the same. I mean, it's evocative of water, right? Could be water, could be a distant landscape. But there's so much that just simply mastering your line can do for you, right? Because the universe draws with light, and our eyes are attuned to light. So it's all drawing. Mountains. So from there, then I began the process of adding color and trying to create dynamic. And now I'm not interested in creating illusion. So none of my paintings have a lot of deep space. I'm not making windows. What I'm really interested in is the tension between the flat surface of the canvas and the desire for the mind to act as if it's looking inside a window. And photography is more like a window and serves that purpose better anyway. They're little windows into the world. But paintings and drawings are about understanding a language. And so I like to have things kind of flat and impastoed and very direct and bold. And I'm not interested in illusionism or getting too fussy or finicky about creating an illusion to the eye. These paintings are all composed. So from the impression to the improvisation and then to the composition. And here's where I begin to basically start to work out the ideas. But I never know what I'm going to paint until I begin. And whenever in the past I've tried to make painted photographs, paintings of a particular thing from my photograph, I've always boogered it up. And it's never come out good. It just looks like a painted photograph, and it doesn't really look like a good painting, and it doesn't really look like a good photograph. So I always have to get out of my own way and lose my sense of preconceived ideas in order for it to really have any life and really sing. Because whenever my ego, whenever my mind has gotten in the way and said, no, I am going to make this thing, it never comes out good. But whenever I get out of my own way and just let it flow, then the result is always, always much more satisfying than whenever I've tried to assert control. So, as a result, I never sit down and say I'm going to make a painting of a mountain with waterfalls, and it just kind of develops that way. One thing suggests another, suggests another, suggests another, and then at some point you say, well, you know, if I go any farther, I'll overwork it. This one's called The Path. This was made with one brush stroke. Big, wide paintbrush dipped in white paint. Very deliberately. And I use a whole number of different vocabularies, splatters and large brush strokes and calligraphy and fields of color and refractive paints and reflective paint. And I guess what I have to say is that what I'm really interested in, beyond the vocabularies of nature, is what I'm really interested in is transformation. I'm interested in something becoming something else. Because the universe, nature with a capital N, which we are all a part of, is always in a process of coming together and coming apart and transforming from one state into another. I was a baby once. I'm a middle-aged guy now. Eventually, hopefully, with luck, I'll be an old man. And then who knows? And when you go out into the world and you see mountains and you tap into geologic time, I mean, that's some serious time, right? I mean, that's process. I mean, you see places in the earth where there used to be vast oceans, or where there were mountains, but they've collapsed. I mean, that's a sense of time that's just vast. And yet, at the same time, we're a part of that. And we're a part of the dew on a spider web that just lasts for a few hours until it's gone. You know, all of that we're part of. And that's really what I try and communicate in my work. It's awe, and it's a sense of connection and feeling. It's the feeling. I can't really convey, I can convey what things look like to your eye with technology. But what I'm really trying to get is how things feel to me when I'm there, and what it means, what it feels like to be a human being and to be out in the world. Because we are one, and we lose that sense of connection to the universe and to ourselves and to each other. But I think art is a great vehicle for expressing that sense of connection, for taking an experience and rendering it into the language of art, and then giving it back to other people, to humanity, in a way that they can understand, because then it's the language of another person. So you'll see in my work there's always a sense of movement from one state to another. So gold into red. This is called Summer Rain. It was inspired by the feeling of rain falling on my face. Motions of wave. This is called moon reflection in waves. Ever look down into the into a lake and see the moon reflecting through the waves. Coming together, exploding. I'm also interested in the putting empty space next to active space. So in this piece, there's a lot of empty space, but then it sort of realizes itself towards the top. And it's evocative, you know, it's evocative of a mountain, you know, reflected mountain. And then some people have asked me about the little symbol that I use. It's the way I sign all my work. And it's kind of derived from this painting, which is Moon Over Waves. And it was a painting I made that in my life kind of marked my maturity as an artist. And it's evocative of nature, but spiritually, symbolically, it's more than that. The circle represents eternity. It represents that part of us that is connected to everything that has no beginning and no end. And that gets manifested out in the world. We experience that unity in a multiplicity of sensation. And that's how we understand the world, is through all those multiple forms. So we're both. We have both of those within us. We have this sense of being within a world that is always changing, that's always moving, that's always transforming from one form into another. And yet, at the same time, we also have this indestructible, beautiful, complete part of ourselves, which is within us, which is the thing that recognizes itself amidst all of that reflections and refractions. So, I love to do collaborations with other artists, and if you'd like to see more of my work, you can visit my website. I'm also looking for collectors and other artists to work with. So, I think that's it. Is that the last one? Yeah. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming.